Hello everyone, my name is Gwen Rich and I'm a Canadian, originally from Canada, Western Canada. And I've been in Panama now for about 6 years. I started coming to Panama 6 years ago as a tourist, visiting some friends who already made their way down here to retire from Canada. And the second visit that I spent down in the Las Tablas area, I knew I was going to come back to Las Tablas and live here full time. I absolutely fell in love with the weather, and where I come from, Western Canada, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, it gets to be minus 30, minus 35, and I knew I was going to say goodbye to the winters and head down this way. So I gave myself a 2-year plan. I focused on everything at home to get financially stable to make the big move to Panama, and that's what I did. It took me 2 years. And it took 2.5 years, to be honest, to get here, but I made it and built a house in Panama. So the way I built a house in Panama, I have a friend who's also a long-term friend from Canada. He had 3 properties here, and he just happened to have an extra lot. And when I was looking for property to buy, I couldn't really find anything that I liked. So he offered the property here, and that's basically the start of my story. I found a builder and built the house in 8 months. 6 years ago, and I've been here ever since. So I live in the peninsula of the Azuero, which I like to say is the desert of Panama, because it's very hot and dry here come summertime, and during the heat of the summer it's very dry. And I live in the province of Los Santos in the south. It takes about 4.5 hours to drive from Panama City. And the first time that I came here, I got around with taxi and buses and stuff like that because it was so easy to get around in this area. I absolutely love this area. It's a very small town, Las Tablas, compared to the cities, the bigger cities. It's the old culture of Panama that's held here still. We have the typical music, we have the typical traditions that are still held on by the people of Las Tablas, who are very old. The first time I've ever been around people over 85 years old is here in Las Tablas, which is great. But I absolutely love Las Tablas. I love the convenience of it. I can walk around town and I can get anywhere in about 15 minutes walking, except the beaches, which are close by, 12 minutes by car. After arriving in Panama 6 years ago, I decided right away that I wanted to invest in some property and build a house. I didn't want to rent. Because I owned a home back in Canada, so I had the financial backing to build something. And so I was on the hunt for the property, and as I said, I got the property through a friend of mine who sold me the property for a good deal. And the next hunt was to find a builder, and just luck have it, I was walking down the street here in front one day, and one of my neighbors was having an addition put onto their house, and I went over and I asked them, you know, are you a builder and stuff like that? And he said yes, and he took me to see one of his builds, and I fell in love with it, and that was it. That's how simple it was. The builder actually showed up on the front door. I didn't have to go very far. And so I drew out the plans for this house on a napkin, seriously, and he took it to an architect. He brought 2 architects to me. I drew the plans up, and both architects gave me a quote, and I made a decision of who I was going to go with. And this builder, who happens to be just around the corner, which is nice, turned into a very good friend. He's helped me with everything, all the paperwork, helped me get a lawyer, everything I needed, he pretty much took care of. So I am one of the really good luck stories of building in Panama. Everything went perfect. I didn't run into any problems except the very end of getting the electricity hooked up took longer than expected, but that was good. So I don't speak Spanish. I have Span-English. I studied Spanish back home in Canada because I traveled a lot of countries that speak Spanish, and that Spanish never worked here. It does not work here at all. So my builder did not speak any English, not even the word no or yes. So we had to do a lot of pantomiming, and everything ended up in the right place. There was never a problem. I was on a crash course of learning construction materials in Spanish, and it worked out fine. It was absolutely perfect. And today I still have him come over and do things to the house that need to be done, big things. If I need something done, he'll either do it or he can find some contract guys to come over and maintain my house. So it's all good. I am a single person living here on my own. I have no family here. I have one friend living next door. And so basically I'm on my own. And I find it very, very safe here. When I first came here on a holiday, I came by myself. I actually traveled the bus at night from Panama City against everybody telling me not to. But I was just so excited to get here. I had rented a house, and I showed up off the bus here at 10 o'clock at night, and then a person that I never met picked me up. Arrangements were made before through a friend. They picked me up, brought me to the house that I rented, and that was it. And I felt safe back then. So I thought, well, you know, I never really thought too much of it being a single woman down here. And I have to say, over the years, I've just been operating like it's just very safe. I've walked from town. I live just on the outskirts of Las Tablas, probably the last neighborhood out. It's a 12-minute walk to the main road of Las Tablas, and I've walked that road at night. In fact, I've walked that road at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning to catch the early morning buses to Panama City if I'm flying back to Canada, where I've had a backpack on my back or pulling a suitcase, and I've never had a problem. Everyone is very friendly here, but not in the friendly way where the men would approach me or anything. I've never had that happen to me. I've never been approached by anyone on the street or anything. In fact, I don't even see anybody asking for money or anything like that. I just don't see it here. And I've had to travel around town and around to the different areas outside of Las Tablas because I volunteer with Petita Santanas, which is a volunteer organization. We rescue street animals. And so I got involved in that right away to meet the community, to be part of the community, and to learn Spanish. And I never thought about safety. I would just get in a car or go on a bus, head out, and I'd be like, where the heck am I? You know, I felt like I was in the deep jungle, and you know, I'm walking through with people I don't know in rubber boots, and really, I've never had, touch wood, anything happen to me. And I also now, in the last 2 years or 2.5 years, have traveled in the city, in Panama City, on my own. So I figured out how to leave Albrook Mall and get to the airport by bus, by subway. They have a subway train, not like Toronto or Montreal, but it's just as good. And I've learned to travel all the way from Albrook Mall to the airport by bus. And I've never had anyone hassle me in the city. Of course, would never do that at night in Panama City, or wouldn't do that at home anyways. One of the things I wanted to speak about was, what can you access here? What's the shopping like in this town or this area? So I'm a vegan. And when I came, I was a raw vegan. So it means 100% living on vegetables and fruit and seeds and nuts that are not processed and not cooked. But when you come to Panama, which I never really thought of it when I was on holidays, because I could get fruits and vegetables and stuff and I was fine. But getting into the vegan diet, right into what I was normally used to on a day-to-day basis, became a little difficult when I moved here full time. So 6 years ago, it was very difficult to get a variety of fruits and vegetables. they just don't grow a lot of the things that you can get in different areas of Panama because of the climate. It's very hard here, and so they need a controlled environment to grow certain fruits and vegetables. So what did I do? Well, I hunted down frozen vegetables and frozen, you know, greens and stuff, and I found out that I could shop in a city close to here, about a half an hour away, called Chitre. And they have a Reba Smith, which is an American type import store where you can get stuff coming in from the States, a really expensive store. But when you need to get it, you know that they can get it. So for the first couple of years, I lived on buying a lot of my dietary needs in Reba Smith. And then just in the last 3 years, there was a big shift here in Panama. Now I can get just about everything that my diet requires in Chitre, and not just at Reba Smith, but I'm finding people are growing things. People are growing more variety of things in this area, and how they're doing it, I'm not really sure, but they are. And also we're getting more imported stuff coming in to different stores from the States without getting charged the high American dollar. So I'm fine now. I'm great. I don't eat any meat. So being vegan is you don't eat anything that has a parent, you know, no parents and stuff like that. And I'm operating fine. So I try and help other people that come in with dietary needs. I do a lot of recommendations. In fact, when I find something that I know someone is probably going to love, I post it on my Facebook page, and I post it out to certain pages, communities around here and down the coast, and people really appreciate that, because sometimes it could be something as simple as almond flour, which you can get in Panama City or out in other provinces, but it's difficult here. This is a farming area, so they farm a lot of roots and vegetables, like roots, the rooted vegetables, a lot of pumpkin and squash and stuff, and potatoes. So the first couple of years that I was here, I was living on a high diet of just potatoes, squash, and the root vegetables. I swear I was going to turn into a potato. And they're not big on greens. They don't typically eat big salads here. A salad is 3 slices of tomatoes and a little cucumber and a piece of lettuce if you can find it. But now, like I say, you can pretty much get everything. Okay, one of the things I want to talk about is something that's very close to my heart, is the saving of the street animals in this country, especially in this area where I live. So when I first got the property and started to build, I noticed there was a lot of cats walking around my street and a lot of kittens on my property. And because I did a lot of rescuing with the SPCA back in Canada, and not knowing anything that was going on at the time in Panama, I contacted a company called Spay Panama, or an organization out of Panama City. And I said, yes, there's a bunch of kittens on my property. Could you send someone to come and get them? And the lady told me, basically, she read me the riot act of what's really going on in the country at the time with the animals. And I was actually, my heart broke into a million pieces. So she basically said, do what you want, you know, you got to do what you can. And I started, not knowing what I was getting myself into, but I started rescuing just on my property. And at that time, there was, I didn't know any vets, I didn't know anyone to help me adopt them out. There was no organizations like we have now to help me. So I just let them be, I let them live on my property. And then I just, by God's grace, ran into a woman who organized a group of expats that live here that kind of help out rescuing the animals, and I got involved. She was literally like, I was at the right place at the right time, and she took me in to this group called Patita Santanas, and for the last 5 years at least, I've been working with them, rescuing animals. And now we've worked with a couple of vets in town that do spay clinics, spaying, neutering, and we try and get them adopted, and we've been quite successful. Now our biggest focus is educating the upcoming generations in this country on how important it is to sterilize trap and release animals, and really start to respect them more, especially cats. Cats have a really hard time on the streets here, especially in this area. It's not all like this in Panama, but just in the last while with the pandemic, rightfully so, and I'm sure in other countries, we've seen an increase of animals on the street. So all the work that we had done in the last 4 years is completely wiped out now. We have to start over, which is fine, and we will. And so what I do in my house here, I live with 20 cats. Most of them are outside. I have 2 babies in the house that I rescued. Someone put a box of kittens under my car a couple of weeks ago. I've got one of them adopted out, and I've got 2 here. But I want to talk about, during the pandemic, how we come together to save these animals. And I usually buy my cat food from the States, and it comes into Chitray delivered. Well, they cut us off from traveling outside town, and the panic was on, not just for me, but for a lot of people who have a lot of animals, on how to feed. And all the generosity started to come together from other provinces, as far as Boquete and Panama City and Pedesi. Everyone started to contact everyone, and we started to form a group together on getting food brought in from different places, like Price Mart and the different places in Panama City. And people were driving, people who could cross the lines. Like, I had military people that would travel for me to another place to pick up cat food and bring it back. So, I mean, the generosity and the coming together of the community during the pandemic was just amazing, to keep saving the animals. So as much as they were going on the street, there were people that were helping getting them off the street, and that's never wavered at all. We're getting better. It's a slow thing, but we're taking hold of the children and getting into the schools and educating them. So I am, yes, the Crazy Cat Lady. I have a website on Instagram and on Facebook for adoptions and donations and the special clinics that we have around town. You can bring your animals for as little as $5 and get them sterilized, and the vets also donate their time and stuff to help out the animals. So what's the healthcare like? That is kind of like the #1 question too. We don't typically have a healthcare program here unless you're buying special insurance from an agent from home or wherever you're traveling. So I winged it. I don't have any special Medicare or health care or anything like that, even though I do have asthma. The first 2 years that I was here, I had a really tough time with the humidity. Because I come from Western Canada, we don't have humidity like here. And so I was getting a lot of lung infections. So I was introduced very quickly to the hospitals and how the healthcare works here. So you can pay $2 at our hospital to get into emergency and see a doctor. They right away will do all the tests that they need to do, and you basically pay as you go. You pay the cost of a test. So I'll go to the hospital for $2. I might have a lung x-ray, and that'll be $10, and then you'll write me a prescription, and the total cost was $12 to see a doctor about what's going on, and then a written prescription. I was in a car accident here about 18 months ago in Chitray, a very bad car accident, that I was in an ambulance, taken in an ambulance to a hospital in Chitray. There was no bill for the ambulance. I didn't pay a bill. I went right into emergency. They took me right away to be x-rayed. I think my bill was $12 when I came out, and that was just for an x-ray. And I had police coming to visit me to see how I was doing, and actually the person who hit my car came to visit me as well, which is very surprising. And I was fine, but it could have went really bad. But I didn't pay anything, and I didn't have any health care or anything like that. I just basically paid for the test. So I'm not sure why, but I'm not the only story like that. I've had other people tell me that they've gone into the hospital and they pay very minor bills. So my recommendations for how to make the transition to Panama, this is my recommendations. What I know now, I wish I'd known back then. And one of the things is, I wish I could have found something like Jackie's Panama Tours because they are just full of valuable information. I would recommend, if you're interested in retiring into any country or Panama or this area, is that you come down a few times and make it a holiday. Come down, check it out, stay here, travel around, travel to different areas of Panama, because it's so diverse, it's so different. The climate is different, topography is different, the people are different, everything is different all over Panama. And the reason I'm saying that is I've learned, now that I've been here so long, the different places in Panama, the weather. The weather here in Las Tablas is very, very hot and humid. And if you are not used to that, like I wasn't the first 2 years, it is really difficult to get through. But I did, I acclimatized, I'm okay now. But had I found a place up near the mountains or the Boquete area, which is towards the direction of Costa Rica, maybe in the lowlands of the mountains and stuff like that, I probably would have preferred that type of weather because it's cooler. But I didn't, and I didn't travel around. I made the decision to stay in Las Tablas because I had friends here. Friends who sold me the property, friends who were visiting, friends who have retired, so you kind of just stick with what you know. But looking back, I wish I would have traveled a bit more. So if you're going to make the decision to make the big move, come down, do your research, ask questions, hook up, network, get on the Facebook pages, get on anything you can find out, and ask questions. Don't assume. Don't assume because we come from another country that we know everything, because we don't. When you come here, it's a totally different environment, and everything at home is not at your fingertip.